With just 3 days remaining before the proclamation of the local government election date, the Independent Electoral Commission is urging all eligible voters to use this final window to register to vote or update their registration details in preparation for the polls. To discuss the importance of voter registration and what the public needs to know, we're joined now by the IEC's General Manager for Civic and Democracy Education, Research and Knowledge Management, Moagisi Letlhaku, as part of our Elections Wednesday, brought to you by the Independent Electoral Commission. Moagisi, thank you for coming through. It feels as if we've reached the business end, haven't we? We've got a couple of days, 3 days before the proclamation of the election date. What are the implications of the interregnum between the final voter registration weekend, this past weekend, and the proclamation of the date on Friday?
Well, proclamation is a very key event in our, election cycle, because what it means is that after the 7th of August, we will not be registering any more eligible voters on the voters roll. So this really is your last chance week, last few days, it's not even a week anymore, last few days to use the online platform particularly to ensure that you either update your details or you register as a voter. So we're calling on all South Africans, take up the multiple ways in which we have on offer to register and ensure you're on the voters roll.
Not to belabor the point, but it's important to perhaps distinguish this period and the proclamation versus what happens on an ordinary day. Does it change the status quo from one where any day, whether voter registration weekend or not, I could easily wake up and decide I want to update my details and be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So on midnight on the 7th of August, now we know that the election will be gazetted on the 7th of August. Midnight on that day, this Friday, the voters' roll closes. And the voters' roll must close so that we can adequately prepare those numbers for election day. So you will not be able to update your details. You will not be able to register after midnight on the 7th. So that is the important urgency of this call to action.
And I don't know if you, and I know that with registration, you sort of have the ability to monitor almost in real time, especially on these voter registration weekends. If not real time, you are able to report shortly thereafter.
Yes.
Are you able to talk to what we are seeing since the voter registration weekend, this past weekend, and the additional numbers that were added onto the voters' roll and this call to action that has followed since then?
I mean, certainly the the registration weekend itself yielded 1.7 million interactions. You remember in the first one, we were just over 2 million. And so cumulatively, we're now at 29 million people on the voters' roll. And there's still activity because even on Monday, when we announced the results of the registration weekend, we also announced that you're now able to register on WhatsApp. So our WhatsApp line 0600 880000, you can now register directly on WhatsApp, which means more avenues have been opened up for South Africans to really take up the opportunity at their fingertips to register.
What's happening? So it feels like something is happening. Not long ago, we were just around 27 million voters on the voters' roll. Yet, within a short period of time, I would say, we've surpassed 29 million.
Yes.
And I know that civic education, active citizenry, is one of your areas of passion.
Absolutely.
What are we reading into what's driving this, almost a surge of people coming through to register?
I think what we can certainly read into it is that we are reaching, especially young people, Tulas. We have really made such a concerted effort with this election. I think really building on the curiosity created by NPE 2024 elections, where there was movement in the political space and people started to ask questions and be very curious about their democracy, about politics, about representation and who they elect. And we tapped into that curiosity to really, engage young people, but South Africans at large, and say, this is how your vote actually can change things or make a difference or add new voices and new representation into the space. And also started just, making more nuanced ways to interact with young people. So making more exciting television variety shows, more engagement on radio. Community radio is still very important. Language, ensuring that we're reaching people in every language and on every platform. So wherever you consume your news and information, Tulas, we are in those spaces.
So what happens then once the date has been gazetted by Minister Moagisi Letlhaku at midnight? What's the process that follows after that, including the electoral calendar?
Yes. So at midnight, voters' roll will close. So you will not be able to register on any of our platforms anymore. So utilize that time. But what also the 7th and proclamation does is that it kicks in the electoral timetable. And on this Friday, on the 7th, we will be officially publishing and releasing the election timetable and unpacking now the next milestones for South Africans and the media. So on the 7th, we will have a press conference with the media and for South Africans. And then that really now kicks in our preparations, our final preparations, releasing the final certified voters roll, which we'll need to do that after proclamation in a few days, but also preparing now final numbers for the election day itself. Registration is now closed. We're now heading towards election day.
And then in terms of translating registration, because you've had impressive numbers as far as registration is concerned, but some would say that's only half the job done.
Absolutely.
Translating registration into turnout on election day. How much of that do you believe, in the area of the work that you do, do you believe is within your scope and powers and perhaps a certain degree of control? How much is in the control of the political parties, them to deliver something that appeals to the voters and energizes their bases to turn out on the day, or the pinch of realities at local government that needs change?
You know, civic education, as I always say, is our mandate as the Electoral Commission, but it is really something that every stakeholder within the democratic space has a role to play. We have to do our part, and for us within civic education, we now kick in our balloting education phase, we kick in our election-specific phase of civic education. So we've been doing a lot of registration drive, a lot of what is government, local government elections, so that people understand why it's important to participate. Now we're moving into our show up and why it's important to show up and participate campaign, and educating especially first-time voters around how to mark the ballot, understanding counting and results, and those things help to facilitate people showing up. But of course we cannot do it by ourselves, because we of course do not deliver on the promises that politicians and independent candidates will be going out and canvassing votes around. But it really is a concerted effort. We must all play our role, and we will certainly do our part as the Commission and are ready to roll out the next phase of our campaign.
And just lastly then, what's the call to action for anyone who has either not checked and updated their registration details, or someone still unsure? Do I want to be on the voters roll? Will I even vote or not?
Yes, you certainly want to be on the voters roll. Why? Because it gives you the option then, when you are inspired on voting day, you will be able to go out and vote. And we want all the 29 million who have registered, who have said, I have this intention to show up. We are asking all of them to show up come voting day. But for this week, Tulas, we are saying register, register, register. IEC at South Africa on all our social media platforms. Go to our WhatsApp line 0600 88 0000. Check your registration status 32810, but ensure that your name appears and your address is correct on the voters roll.
I'm chuckling because you say that WhatsApp number with such ease, and it just came out a couple of days ago. So
we've actually had it for a few
years,
had
it for a while,
but you know,
but not as a platform for registration.
For registration, that's the new part. We just released that.
So perhaps it's worth repeating it and allowing me to take notes.
It's 0600
0600
88 0000. You're able to check your registration status. You're able to register now on WhatsApp, but also there's a multitude of civic education resources that you're able to access and share with your community.
And I know I asked this of the Deputy CEO. It works pretty much like the other interactive bot type.
Yes, it's a chat bot.
WhatsApp. So basically you send hi.
You send hi.
Number.
And then it will pick it up. But we also have our colleagues in our call center who are also able to live chat for things that are not on the menu as well.
Okay, thank you for coming through and talking to us at least this phase as it's wrapping up, but the next phase is about to begin. That's Moagisi Letlhaku, who is General Manager for Civic and Democracy Education, Research and Knowledge Management at the Independent Electoral Commission.